Very excited to talk to our next guest and speak again with the great Ricky Williams. Leroy joined us here on the program. Enjoyed our last conversation with Ricky. And, Leroy, May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and Ricky's doing some really cool stuff to help raise awareness. Going on is very, very important. He's been in touch with this stuff for a very long time. Ricky, thanks for the time, man. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
What do you have going on this month as far as just, something you've always been in touch with mental health awareness, special things that you got going on this month with your company or reaching out and you're talking, all that type of stuff?
Mainly it's just doing a lot of media, getting my voice out there and sharing my perspective. I've done the mental health thing deeply on many different sides, all the way from talking to a therapist, to spending 6 months at McLean Hospital, to getting a master's degree in psychology. So, I've made my rounds, and I have interesting perspectives to share.
Are you more like, and so, when you play and you're in that locker room and you see all the different personalities and the backgrounds of people, and you can look at somebody and say, that guy's going to have to deal with some stuff that he's never dealt with. Do you feel good as far as where the league is going, as far as just acknowledging that these are issues that everybody has to deal with, and it's not just a man up, ladybug, let's go, which was what it was back in the day. Like, you couldn't have mental issues. You couldn't have personal issues. It either had to be about the team or you were hurt. That's it.
Yeah. I think just in general, it's a like a masculine male thing. And I think because football is so hyper masculine, in a football facility, there might be 5 women, maybe 10, but not a lot. It's like 1%. It's crazy. And so there's just not a lot of that there. So we have to generate it ourselves, and we have to learn to be compassionate and take care of each other. And the teams that are the best, the teams that really gel, are the ones where they're taking care of each other. And maybe from the coach's perspective, you have to be tough. But the teams that I've been on where we were really successful is because inside the locker room, we took care of each other. If someone was going through something with their lady, we would look out for them. We would understand. And I think that's becoming more acceptable now. And I think guys are feeling more courage and more willingness to be real and share what's really going on with them. Because the truth is, just because you suppress or bury something, it doesn't make it disappear. It usually just gets worse. And I think one of the biggest issues is because NFL players, I think athletes across the board, have had to stuff it for so long while they're playing, that when they get into retirement and they're not playing and they don't have such a powerful thing to use to distract them, all of those things come to the surface and they have to be dealt with later.
That's what happens when guys get done with football. It's like, you've never had to deal with life issues because you've been in that cocoon, and then you get out and you have to deal with something as simple as road rage, right? Yeah. You've never had to deal with that. Now all of a sudden you got to deal with regular people that haven't actually lived by the code you had to live by. And I think that was the hardest thing for me, is that, wait a minute, I'm turning on the TV when I'm playing, and this is how I'm required to act, and this is how I'm required to handle this situation. And then I get done with football and I realize none of y'all are living by these rules.
Yeah, it's real. It's real. And so, it's interesting because I think, and this is my experience, I think a combination of the warrior attitude that you have to make it to the NFL, and being aware of your mental health and taking care of yourself. I think when you combine those two things, there's nothing more powerful, because there is something about life where sometimes you do have to deal with what's up. But to me, pushing your emotions down doesn't help, because mainly the most important things that we have to deal with and face are internal emotional things. Right. And so what I've learned, and my success, has come from applying everything that I learned on the football field, applying those same things to my mental health.
I was wondering, because we've been talking a lot about this, is the idea of athletes, when they do push through stuff, it kind of felt like they got a lot more credit for it than they are even now, because we see what's happened with like Baker Mayfield. Like, he played basically half the season with a busted shoulder, and now the franchise moved on in another direction. He doesn't really have a place to go. We saw this this week with the Heat and Joel Embiid, where people are trying to analyze, like, why is he, not having a good game when he's playing with a broken face and a broken thumb? And it could be just simple as he's hurt and not feeling himself. So that, I guess, is it tough these days, or has it always been, just with the idea of you're having to push through something because you want to be there for your team, but nobody really knows what you're physically going through and mentally going through?
Well, I mean, when it comes to wins and losses, the truth is, in sports, is nobody cares. It's funny, when I first got into the NFL, I had a conversation with Ironhead Hayward, and he sat me down and he said, look, when you go out on the field, he says, whenever you're out there, everyone is going to assume that you're 100%. I didn't take his advice, but his advice was, if you're not 100%, don't go out there, because you will be judged by whatever you do. I'm the kind of person that I'm going to try to be out there whenever. And that was part of, like, what I embraced about being an athlete, is that warrior nature, that I can push through anything. Right. And I think that's partially true. I think we can push through anything if we take care of ourselves. If we attend to our mental health, then we can push through anything. I don't think we push through anything on its own. I think we have to, again, apply that warrior nature to dealing with the things that bother us on the inside.
But one of the problems with that, though, Ricky, is that so if I went on the field and played hurt and I knew I wasn't my best, I could deal with, mentally, I can deal with the ramifications of that, because I know that I did everything that I could, and I put everything into going out and being the best that I could on that day. Some people, it has, like, it takes them more into a free fall, in that they want people to understand what they're going through without ever the team, the coaches, nobody really expressing that on your behalf. And when you try to explain it, it comes after a loss or after the fact, and it comes across as an excuse. And you never really get a chance to, for people to acknowledge what you're going through, because the team is not going to tell anybody how real the injury is.
So, yeah, I mean, for me, like, the obvious thing is, like, some kind of, and this is what I was saying earlier, some kind of internal system on the team where the guys on the team have been through it. And and there's a safe place to say, I know you've been through, can you help me out? I'm going through this. Then it becomes a real team. And I think we take care of each other. But this issue right here, to me, is, in my opinion, the biggest mental health trigger in professional sports, is how to deal with pain, how to deal with injuries. Because so much of our self-worth is tied into our performance. And the thing that impacts performance the most is a physical injury. And so I came up with this idea that, because this was a couple of years ago when the NFL was talking about moving to 18 games. And I said, I think it could work if the NFL went to 18 games, but there was a mandatory, it was mandatory that players had to sit out 2 of those games. Right. Then you can become strategic about, okay, I'm not feeling great, but I have these 2 games that I get to miss this season. Let me miss this game and another, so I can be fresh. And I think that's a way where the NFL gets 18 games and the players don't have to play more. And it alleviates a lot of the stress about playing hurt and playing injured. And I think, it's just an idea, but I think coming up with creative ways to integrate the players' mental health into everything we're doing. We see on the field, they're doing great things to protect the players' physical health, but I think there's things that the league can do to take better care of players' mental and emotional health.
Let me ask you this. If, knowing what you know now, because I've had this conversation with Tobin on numerous occasions, and seeing players try to play with injuries, and then having to deal with what they have to deal with after the fact, when they know they really tried to do the best that they could, would you even risk it? Like, it's hard for me, even though I did it and I played with injuries, the way I see people react to players now, and mainly because, I played in Cleveland, so I saw Baker Mayfield struggle through a whole season. And instead of him getting a Warrior brand, he got the bum brand, right? They branded him with bum. And I'm like, wait a minute, man. He played through something serious, and you don't get rewarded for that unless you win. Would you still risk it, especially when where we are today and how these things, because now Baker's not going to get the extended contract. He's not getting the contract extension. He might not even get an opportunity to play so that he can show that he's healthy. And all of this is fallout from him deciding to suck it up for his team.
I mean, it comes full circle. When I started talking, sucking it up doesn't work.
Yeah, right.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work. And I think, we just have to be real with that. And that's physical, emotional, right? Sucking it up in the long term, it doesn't work because the things don't disappear by themselves.
You were one of the trades in Dolphins history that, it was a kind of a landmark deal. Everybody was super excited about it. And honestly, the Dolphins really haven't had as exciting a player on offense as you, probably until they traded for Tyreek Hill this summer. So fans are buzzing. What was your reaction when the Dolphins made that move? And this was kind of a crazy offseason. There was a lot of moves that were made, man. I haven't seen this many stars, it feels like, flip teams over a summer. It was like the action never stopped.
It's like basketball now.
Yeah.
So, first thing, I was excited because Tyreek Hill is a great talent. And then the next star right after that was just great that Tua has someone to throw the ball to. It's looking back at what Tua did at Alabama, he had really dynamic receivers that could do magical things with the ball. And then the third thing was the doubt, because it's one thing as a running back to get him the ball in space, but you have to be a little bit more creative to get a receiver the ball in space. And so, but again, the head coach, what he did with the 49ers with Sweeney was impressive. And so, I think we're going to see good things.
Yeah, it was this coach is I don't know if you've seen any of it, because last time we talked to you was right after the Flores thing went down, but have you seen any of the stuff on social media with this McDaniel? He seems like a different dude. Like, he marches to his own beat. He wants to hang out with the players. He wants to invite him to the barbecue. He's hanging out with them at the races. Like, would you like that? A coach that just seems, I know he's younger, but just kind of wants to hang around you guys. Do you think that will lead to anything positive for them?
I think a new coach that has a positive track record, I think it's a great way to build rapport with the team, but it depends on the coach. If it's something that's fake and he's trying to do as a gimmick, it's not going to work. If it's really who he is and he earns the trust of his players, I think he could be extremely successful.
Like I had Bill Belichick and Dennis Green, and you had Mike Ditka, who was old school, and a couple other guys. But for the most part, as bad or as mean as they think coaches are, I've never had a coach where I didn't have some kind of relationship with that I couldn't go talk to, even though he may have been old school, hard-nosed type of guy. What were you like that with Mike Ditka? Because you guys were tied in together more than most running backs and head coaches.
Yeah. So, I mean, most people don't think this about me, but I really consider myself an old school player. And so I felt like Ditka and I, we spoke the same language. It's funny. You're talking about this injury conversation. So I ended up missing 4 games my rookie year with the turf toe injury. After playing through high ankle sprain, after playing through dislocated elbow, finally a turf toe put me out for 4 games. And I remember at the end of the season, we were playing the Cowboys. We had 2 games left, and Coach Ditka called me in his office. And he sat me down, and he said, when I played, we didn't have high ankle sprains.
That's
of course.
Yeah.
That's of course.
It was great. It was great to get a taste of that, because you don't really see that so much in the NFL anymore.
That's like Mark Jackson said, you got to tell your body not today. I'm like, is it now, Ricky, you had a high ankle sprain, you had a dislocated elbow. Tell me that turf toe wasn't the worst.
I'm telling you, it was by far the worst. It was by far the worst.
You couldn't put did they cut the little diamond in your shoe?
They cut the little diamond in the shoe. I even tried to get a shot. I was like, I'm never doing that again.
Hey, I tell people all the time, when you play in the cold and you see an offensive lineman come back to the huddle and he have tears coming down his eyes and they go, what happened? Somebody stepped on my toe.
Oh, man, Ricky, we really appreciate the time, man. Anything you got going on with Heisman that you want to let our audience know about and things you got coming up?
Well, just let them know that we're doing Heisman. And, it's a lifestyle brand, and it's really an extension of my lifestyle. I started consuming cannabis when I was playing in the NFL, and it opened my mind and allowed me to start thinking on a more elevated level. And that's really the message, is open your mind and raise the level of your consciousness. And cannabis can help you do that.
We appreciate the time, Ricky. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. All right.
Take care. Oh, man. Love talking to Ricky, man.
Hey, I like when he was down here, we used to chop it up all the time.
That's cool.
So I like, we would always talk because like I was with some of these old school coaches when they were like in their prime. And then he kind of caught some of them on the end, but the same coaches are on the same coaching staffs. So we could always have conversations about different guys. And Mike Ditka was always one of those guys because he was a hard ass. And sometimes the old school coaches would say things and you look at him like, that's not accurate. Like
the guy.
We didn't get high ankle sprays when I was playing. I'm like, you weren't moving fast enough, Ditka.
It's like the guy in the Brown staff who goes, yeah, stretching? What do you think they need stretching in Normandy?
Exactly. Yes, that's it. You don't understand how many coaches were like that because that's just the way football was. So you get into the league and you're thinking, well, wait a minute. I'm like, I remember one time he said, so-and-so played with 3 broken ribs. I'm like, I can't breathe. Like, what do you want? Or they'll throw this one at you. Here's another one. If you don't practice this week, I can't play you. I'm like, okay. Like, it's still not going to make me heal any faster. I'm telling you, man, it was some of the old school tactics to motivate you or to get you like, and as players got smarter and evolved, and that's kind of what Ricky's talking about. As players evolved and started like thinking these things out, you look at this coach and like, that's just stupid.
Yeah.
No, that's not accurate.